If you ever have a pen and paper, you have two powerful tools that can relieve you of stress. Writing things down can help declutter your mind and help you focus on what is important. Have you ever felt the urge to put your thoughts on paper? In today's episode, my guest and I will be exploring how writing can be a tool for self discovery, stress relief, and personal growth. And if you ever thought about writing a book yourself but felt unsure where to start, this episode is for you. And while you are here, hello, mamas and papas. Are you looking for the next book for that special kid in your life? Here is a book recommendation for you. Meet Freddy and the Veggies, an adventure where veggies are superheroes, fun, colorful, and a parent's secret weapon. Say goodbye to veggie battles at the dinner table. In Freddy and the Veggies, kids discover that healthy eating can be an exciting adventure. And they can still hang out with their sweet friends too. Fun characters and lively illustrations available in the Kindle store and paperback formats. Welcome to the Minute Mastery Podcast, a conversational productivity and time management podcast where busy authors and entrepreneurs are inspired to create time for what truly matters. I'm your host, Ngozi Edema, a time management coach, writer, and entrepreneur. Here you are encouraged to turn your minutes into milestones and to create at least 1 hour a day to work on your goals without feeling overwhelmed. New episodes out every Monday to set the tone for the rest of the week. Use the Minute Mastery as your motivation to keep moving. Carla Vergot is an author working on her fourth book. She took time off teaching to write her first book. And during that time, her husband was diagnosed with cancer, and that influenced her writing. Welcome to the Minute Mastery, Carla.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Now you mentioned that you mentioned earlier on that your plot in your first book developed into something funnier than you intended. Why did that happen?
So, a quick little background of how I got where I am. I went to school, I went to college to learn how to write. My plan was to be a writer. I got a degree in language arts, writing, and editing. And 30 years later, I had not written the first book. So, I was teaching special education. It was a good time for my family. I decided to take a sabbatical of 1 year away from teaching to write this book and just get it out, be done with it. When you are a writer, I think most of us, even if you haven't written a book yet, it is in you. It is in you to do it, and you feel it and you carry it with you. So the opportunity to get this out into the world is pretty priceless. I decided to do this almost immediately. My husband was diagnosed with cancer, and it was an aggressive form of cancer. It was something that would take his life within 3 to 6 months. We were preparing for those end of life kinds of decisions we had to make together, and it was a very dark time for us. So I think I had taken this time to write. He was in a lot of treatments and appointments, and so I was still writing. I did start the story, but I think it was such a dark time for us that I needed a lighter, funnier, flirtier thing to brighten my day, put some sunshine on my road. And so my story went from what I intended to be a darker mystery to a very fun, flirty, light. I call it rom-com story, romance, comedy, and mystery. And it was the therapy that I think I needed at the time.
So would you describe writing as a therapy? Because some of us do as writers.
I do. I do. I think many of the writers that I know also use it as therapy. you know, if you're a writer out there, you know that when you can write something, you feel better. It's almost like you have to get it out sometimes. Like if you if you need to exercise, or if you need to eat the right thing, or if you need to spend some time writing, it's one of those kinds of things. I do think that it's very therapeutic, and it can be. I distinguish m- my experience of writing this book from journaling. I have a lot of respect for journalers. I think it's a skill I wish I had. I've probably started 100 journals and not been able to maintain not one of them, not a single one of them. And I think it's a failure on my part as a writer. But then I sort of corrected that thinking because not every tool works for every person. So I get the therapy out of writing the story. And I wish more people were open to this idea, because I think you can work out some of your situations, some of your big life struggles or traumas or experiences. You can work them out through characters, almost like role playing, but on paper. And I was doing it. With Ricky when he was sick. I want to tell everybody that he is now cancer free, and thriving. So we
Wow.
did make it through that dark time. It didn't look like we were, but we did. And the
Yeah,
book was
thanks for
finished.
sharing that bit with us because we'd love
Yes.
to know what happened to him. Yeah.
Yes, right.
The other thing you also mentioned that after you left college, it took you 30 years to write your book, and it's something similar to what happened to me. I mean, I didn't start out and thought that I should write a book, but it took me over 10 years from the time I thought that, you know what, I could write a book. It took me over 10 years to go past the roadblock, and I had to write a book. Today is not my day to tell you why I didn't write mine. So now, what is your own reason for not writing for 30 years?
I think probably the biggest reason was the financial factor. It is hard to make a living as a writer. It's just really hard. Even if you have a great story. I learned not long ago, and I'll probably get this statistic wrong. I hate giving wrong information. I think it's 20,000 books come out every month. That is a lot of competition. And even if your book is great, it is hard to draw the attention of readers, because there are so many great books out there and there's a lot of traffic. So, like many of us, I couldn't make a living writing books. And so I wasn't writing books. I did the things that I could do to earn money and, pay my rent. And that included teaching, all the things. That was all the things. The sabbatical, as I mentioned, my husband and I were in a position where I could not have an income for a year, and try to make the book a reality. Not necessarily even thinking that it would be a career choice, just an opportunity to get my story out there. It was after I finished the first book and he survived cancer. I loved the experience of working on the story so much that I decided to resign from teaching and continue doing it. I couldn't do it without his financial support, without his ability to pay the mortgage, because I'm not earning a living at it at this point. I hope to. That's the hope. But it is very hard to do. And so when you ask me what was my obstacle, it was probably the financial piece that was the biggest obstacle at that time.
Yeah. I know there's a lot of noise. That's what we all struggle as writers because you have to stand out in a very competitive market. You have to stand out. So, there are other ways we're trying to explore to get to that point where readers will take a look at what you have to offer, and you can actually earn a living. Many authors are earning a living on their books, and so we it's something we would talk on in another episode. Was it hard to write your first book? Now you took time off to do it. Was it hard to write your first book?
I utilized a tool that I think is completely underutilized in our community. I had a friend who was a writer, and she insisted on being my critique partner. I didn't know really even what that was. I had no experience with it. I let her call herself that and thinking, that'll keep her quiet. What it really was though is two people working together on a project, and you've got somebody who's intimately aware of what you're trying to do, and you bounce ideas off this person. He's there to give you strategies, or you're wandering. You need to bring it back together. You need to bring it back to the point. It's not easy to find the critique partner for you. I've worked with two of them at this point, and I find that they are exceptionally valuable tools, especially if you're getting started. So that was the thing that really helped me. She was working from home at the time. She was writing and working another job, but she was working from home. So she set up a desk for me in her office where she was working, and we had two desks. I would go to her house 3 or 4 times a week. And for sometimes 8 hours a day, we would sit there and work on our projects. So having that accountability, having somebody who understood my story, it was all really motivating. The accountability part of it was very motivating to get the first book finished. So once I had that in place, and somebody just kind of nipping at my heels the whole way, I did write the book. I ground it out. I just sat there and worked it out.
Thank you. So, what piece of advice would you give to a new writer?
Start writing. Most people, a lot of, I've heard a lot of advice. You have to be a great reader to be a good writer. And I am not a great reader. I'm a very slow reader. I consume maybe 6 books a year just because I love reading, but I'm that slow at it. I think that reading gives you exposure to other styles of writing and helps you understand how to manipulate language to tell your story. But I think to be a really good writer, you have to be writing and practicing. The second book in my series, I believe, is better than the first book because 84,000 words later, I was I was practicing in the first book. I was learning and, putting sentences together and making dialogue. So when I started book two, I was that much better at it. And I think that if you are practicing and if you are really, if you want to write that book, then you need to be writing.
So, at some point in time, writers often experience writer's block. I do. How do you cope with writer's block?
I'll tell you, I used to think that I had a very simple strategy. It was go out and see, look at things, see things, watch things, listen to people's conversations, and that really infuses me. Um, but I learned during the shutdowns of COVID that where my real inspiration lies is in travel. And at that time, we weren't traveling, so I was really struggling with how to be motivated. Book three in my series was written during that time, and it took me forever. I had the hardest time getting through periods of being blocked because I wasn't taking trips. I wasn't going to places I hadn't seen before. That was really inspiring for me. So I think going forward, I'm going to have to just understand that if I can't travel, if I can't go visit places, that I need to find other ways to do it. And there is value in going to your coffee shop and watching people and listening to people, listening to conversations and seeing how they structure the words that they're saying. That's a really valuable way for me to understand dialogue. Dialogue is one of the hardest things to do, I think, in writing a story. And so spending time listening to people's conversations is valuable, and it can help unblock you.
Hmm. I like the bit you said about listening to people's conversations. In today's world, it's not something that people do very often, even within the same house. People hardly converse with each other. They are always on their cell phone. And so many of us are losing the skills of conversation. because we're not
100%.
conversing with people. So if you're not conversing with people, you lose the skills. And so dialogue
And
becomes a problem in writing.
we do. Even if you're communicating with people through email or text messages or online somehow and leaving messages that way and you think you're communicating, it's not the same as a face-to-face three-dimensional dialogue. And we are losing those skills. And I think that when those skills are not sharp for you, it reflects it in your work. I had a great compliment recently. I had done a book signing down in North Carolina, and the owner of a small independent bookstore, Stephen, actually, Fred and June's Books, Stephen had said that he thought my characters sounded different when they spoke, and he encountered books where the characters started to sound the same, and I was very honored for him to recognize that because I do try to have them sound like different people. I don't want it just to be words are coming out of their mouths. I want the things that they say to be true to the character that they are, and you get that from listening to how people talk.
Yeah. I always tell people that the characters in a book are the same kind of characters you find in the real world. So
Yes,
writers don't invent anything new. It is the same
right.
sort of personalities that we see around, because if you invent something new, who is going to read it? Because they don't know. They can't experience that kind of thing. But if you put down things that people experience in real life, then it becomes interesting in a book. Yeah.
Yes.
So, so what was the most surprising part about becoming an author?
How little time I spend writing and how much time I spend promoting the books. It's probably 80% trying to promote and 20% writing the next story. I'm working on book 4 in the series now, and I haven't written a single sentence for about 2 weeks because I've been lining up book signings and doing some author takeovers on Facebook, and I've just got on TikTok to try to promote my stuff there. There's a lot that authors have to do that is not writing, and that was the most surprising thing for me.
Yeah. It's I I always describe it as you being in the project manager of a project. And so
Yes.
your work is to bring in the different people who will do that project, but you have to be familiar with every bits and bits of the project. So the
Yes.
writer and the marketer and the social media manager as well.
And the party planner and the
Planner
designer.
and everything.
Yes.
Overwhelming. It is overwhelming. And yeah, you're doing a great job. I can relate with everything you have said, because that is the story of my life as well.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
sometimes some people tell me they don't have time to write. They have this idea in their head, but they don't have time to do it. And you, in spite of what you were going through at the time your husband was battling cancer, you still managed to write a book.
I did.
So, what would you tell somebody who is saying, I don't have the time? Because I believe I don't have the time is a myth.
It is a myth, but we all have it. We all use it. I mean, for 30 years I used it. And as I looked a little bit closer at my own personal experience, I was becoming aware that it might not have been I don't have the time, but maybe I lack now. I've given away all of my creativity and energy during the day. So I don't have that part of it to start with. As a teacher, you have to constantly be coming up with another way to explain something and engage people and be fun and be friendly and solve problems, and it requires an immense amount of creativity. And at the end of the day, I felt like my bucket was empty. I had given all of my creativity to my job, and I think that a lot of people probably are doing that as well. They're putting all of that energy into the thing that's sustaining them, financially, and there's not anything left over for the story that they really want to write, that they're probably meant to write. So I think that piece is harder to get your arms around. But when you do get your arms around that and you find ways to recharge yourself and rejuvenate that part, it's all about, we talk about this all the time, is self-love and mental health care and just taking care of yourself so that you can be there for others. It's the same thing. You have to find ways to take care of yourself, and when you do that, you charge up that battery a little bit. And even if then when you find 15 minutes, you've got the energy and the creativity to do it, and you just do it for 15 minutes. Just that. I think a lot of times I love the hard and fast way of writing, where if you have an hour, you can while away 50 minutes of it trying to figure out what you want to say. But if you have 15 minutes and you go into it like a sprint, this was another thing that I learned writing as a sprint. Just start. You have 15 minutes. Just start writing sentences, and maybe 80% of the sentences will be junky, and you get rid of them. But 20% of those sentences are going to be solid gold, and they're going to help you take your story forward. So I do encourage people to do the sprint method. Something that I learned early on when I was writing my first book. There are communities, there are groups online on Facebook, on other social media platforms that will organize themselves, and they will say, "Hey, we're having a sprint starting at 1 o'clock. Anybody join us?" And you check in, and then you put the computer down, and you're just working on your own stuff, and you check back in 15 minutes later. It's very powerful because it helps people stay on track, and it's the accountability piece, I think, that helps them. I do it today with some of my critique partners, not every day, but I occasionally we'll do a sprint. If one of us just needs to kind of get going, we'll do, hey, let's sprint this week instead of just talking about what the characters are doing. Do some work, do some sprinting.
Oh, wow, that is amazing. I like this idea of getting a critique because I always encourage people to get an accountability partner.
Yes.
This person is not there to judge you. The person is there to just push you, gently push you to doing it. Because I used one when I wrote my first book. It was a cookbook, and I had a coach that comes once a week, and her job is to just check me through. And she became familiar with what I was writing. I was writing a book on African food, and she became familiar with it. She gave me suggestions. She told me, you know what, you can do it this way, you can do it this way, you can do it this way. Okay, why not try this for the next week and let's see what happens. So just getting somebody to bounce off ideas like that is perhaps all we need to get us through, to move us to do something. But if you're working on your own, isolated in your room, most times you can do anything. For the most part, I was a stay-at-home mom. So the only thing I had was the kids and doing my housework and doing things. If I don't have something to push me, I will never get around to doing it.
Yes.
So it is always good to have someone who will lovingly push you to achieving your goals. If there's one thing I take from this discussion is getting someone to be there, your cheerleader, telling you you can do it.
It is that, but I'll take it one step farther. The critique partner needs to be a writer. That part helps you do your writing. If you can speak the language of a writer with a writer. I have people around me. My husband's a great cheerleader. I've got other friends that they're great cheerleaders. The real difference was when I started working with another writer. And I think finding that person is not easy. You don't just luck into it. You really have to look for somebody. You have to find somebody that's kind of on your skill level. You have to find somebody who has the time to invest in it.
Yeah.
Um, I I told you the first critique partner, we met a couple times a week, 3, 4 times a week. My new critique partner that I'm working with now, we have a scheduled weekly meeting, but oftentimes that gets canceled because one or the other is has a conflict. So it's really hard to manage the that part of it, the business part of a critique partner. But the more you invest in it and the more consistent that you are with it, it is such a useful tool.
Thank you. So if the listeners want to get connected with you, how do they find you? And what do they hope to from connecting with you?
I would love for them to connect with me. I always like to meet new potential readers. I'd love to be a new author to that person or those people. This is my first book, Lily Barlow, The Mystery of Jane Doe. And this is the second book, Lily Barlow, The Mystery in the Mangroves. Book 3 comes out in May. So if you like books in a series, these books are fast and fun and flirty, and they move at a very quick pace. But you can also find me on Instagram at Carla_Vergot. And I think I do probably the greatest amount of my connecting with people on Facebook at Carla Vergot's Back Porch. You can find me there, and you've got to ask to come in. I'm kind of careful about letting people in, and I will ask how you heard about me. So say, oh, you were on the podcast that I listened to, and I'll invite you in. And we are a very light and fun, loving community there. There are other authors, there's me, there's a lot of readers in there, and we just all kind of enjoy each other's company. I post probably one thing a day, and if you have time to talk about it or get involved with it, people will leave comments, and if not, they'll just scroll through and catch us on the next day. It's a fun place to be.
Thank you very much for coming on the show, Carla.
Thank you for having me.
Writing a book isn't just about storytelling or sharing knowledge, it's a powerful form of therapy. Whether you are journaling personal experiences, writing fiction, or sharing expertise, writing helps process emotions, help us gain clarity, and even heal us from past trauma. And thanks for tuning in to the Minute Mastery Podcast. If you have found this episode helpful, please share it with someone who could use more time in their day. And remember to subscribe and leave a review. Until next time, remember, you are in control of your time and you've got this.